Hi, everybody out there. Welcome to AdColony's webinar on redefining marketing for at-home consumers across APAC. Just a start by introducing the two panelists today. So you have the pleasure of my company. So hi, I'm Tom. I run AdColony across APAC. And I'm here with Mitch, who is our strategy director across APAC. So one of the smart guys in the business, and he's going to talk you through some research that we've done looking at consumer behavior in across Asia Pacific during this period. Mitch, say hello.
Hey guys, glad you're all here today to join us.
Yeah, I hope everybody's having a great day. Okay. So today we're covering redefining marketing to at-home consumers. And as consumers have moved from their daily lives to a very different existence, lockdown, a circuit breaker, whatever we're calling it, where they're spending more time at home, their behavior has changed. AdColony has run research across Asia Pacific looking at exactly how that consumer behavior has changed. So we want to talk about what brands should know about coronavirus and consumer impact. The report, the study that we ran across APAC, we had a particular focus around India, Australia, and Southeast Asia. We covered 1,200 people with the survey, and respondents' ages ranged from 18 to 75, but were typically between 25 and 54. Okay, Mitch.
All right, guys. So just jumping into what the research has come across, like from everything that we've done. So we see that users are changing with the times. The doorstep is now the new border for people. People aren't moving out of their houses. They're starting to live indoors a lot more, starting to interact with each other at home a lot more. And being at home a lot more, I mean, there are a couple of stages that we've identified that the different regions across APAC have gone through. So, I mean, initially it started off with, when this whole virus started to the outbreak started in early December, there was more proactive health-minded buying. So people were cautious about what they were doing. They were being health-minded in general and, looking to boost their immunity and stuff like that. But as it got a little bit more serious, they then started to evolve into a more reactive kind of approach to health management. So this is where they then started to purchase products like face masks, sanitizers, and all the jokes about the toilet paper that you all have seen across the internet. This then evolved into pantry preparation as well, where people were stocking up on non-perishable items. And this moved further into quarantine living preparation, where there was increased online shopping, reduced outdoor visits, and a strain in supply chain because of things being locked down all over the country and movement being restricted. Uh, the final two stages were then the restricted living, where everyone is available, like indoors at majority of the time of the day, and products have become unavailable that because of the restricted supply chain. The final stage, which we see all of this moving into, is living a new normal, which is once things start to subside and return to normal, everyone is going to return back to their normal life. However, this is going to be with a renewed cautiousness towards health and hygiene in the way they operate their day-to-day lives. Now, where we have identified APAC being in a predominant stage is the ones highlighted in blue, which is quarantine living preparation and restricted living, because this is where a large chunk of the APAC regions are falling into right now. And this is where we've also identified a number of shifts in consumer behavior. So what are these predominant shifts? So just to summarize it, so it has now become a work from home world. So 70% or more of users across APAC have either started working from home or have reduced drastically the amount of time they're spending in the office. It has also become a world where people are gaming a lot more. So 55% of users are saying that they're playing games multiple times a day, and this is a lot more than what has been experienced before. And out of these users, even 67% of them have added at least one new game on their phone since the month in the month of March. This goes on to even people up to the point installing around 6 apps or more, 6 games or more on their device. And 66% of respondents have also purchased something online in the past 2 weeks. Now, this can vary from a regular essential item to something which they would have normally gone offline to the store and walked in and just purchased it. But to be cautious about what they're doing nowadays, people are preferring to stay at home and shop online. And what role do brands play in all of this? So 80% of consumers are looking for brands to continue communicating with them during this period. They don't want brands to go off the radar and go silent. They want them to continue communicating about how things are going and how they are approaching the situation as well. We'll deep dive into each of these points as we move further into the presentation. But just moving ahead from here. So like I mentioned earlier, so 71% of users across APAC have cut back on social activities. Now, if you see, the two predominant factors are that they are either working from home or that they've reduced outdoor and social activities. And obviously, it goes without saying that vacation travel plans, work travel plans have also been cancelled by a large chunk of users, along with the younger users who we've got responses from, that who they've started attending online classes as well. So this is just, like a natural progression of things that are happening given the current situation that we're dealing with. And this is the situation that everyone has to deal with currently. And when we look at this from an APAC perspective, and how does it compare to the regions within APAC, like Tom mentioned, the three major regions that we focused on, we see that a large chunk of the work from home and reduced outdoor activities are driven by Southeast Asia and India. Australia is, yes, a little bit more free right now, but things are getting reaching the same stage as there it is right now as it is with India and Southeast Asia. But yeah, it is these two regions that are driving up the numbers for working from home and reducing the outdoor activities. So, in all of this shift that we are seeing in what people are doing, digital is now becoming the new buddy of everyone who's sitting at home and who's not interacting with people outside of their houses. And when we look at the devices that the people are using while sitting at home, it is predominantly the smartphone and the laptop or desktop that users across age groups are using. So when we look at this split by Gen X, Y, and Z, we see that the smartphone and the laptop devices are the devices of choice. And the laptop, yes, because a lot of people are working from home and even taking online classes. So it is this what is pushing up the use of laptop and desktop, but it is also the smartphone which is the device of choice of majority of the people that are in their lockdowns and staying at home away from any kind of social activity. So some of the key trends that we've identified and some of the key statistics also that are interesting to observe during this period are that 47% of users have increased the consumption of video streaming content on Netflix or any other online TV source. So that's a pretty big jump, but even gaming is a huge jump that we've seen from 40% of people that are now started gaming on their smartphones and tablets more in this post-COVID stage as compared to what it was during the pre-COVID stage. We also have people watching more TV, with 37% of them saying that they are doing that. 33% are spending more time on social media. Now, this is also something interesting because you would assume that people are just on Facebook or YouTube or TikTok or whatever it is the whole day, but with all the negativity, fake news that's going on around all over the place, people are preferring to stay within zones where they are getting the accurate content and stay away from negativity in general. And 31% of these users are even saying that they're reading more news nowadays. So moving ahead, at what times of the day are the users consuming this different content? So if we look at mobile gaming, yes, while it was popular earlier, it has now become even more popular right now. So if we look at this chart where the darker blue bar on the top of each line item, that indicates what the peak timings pre-COVID were, and the lighter blue bar, which is below that, indicates what the peak timings post-COVID are. So we can see that now gaming has become an activity that people are uptaking throughout the course of the day. And this starts right from the time they wake up in the morning, and it progresses all throughout the day as well. Video streaming popularity has increased as well, but that is more towards the end of the day. Online shopping has changed from just being a late in the day activity to being a morning and an evening activity as well. And yes, social media uptake has increased too, along with watching TV. And the interesting part to note is that now health and fitness content has become something that people are looking at to start their day with as well. So when we have apps like Cult Fit and Center by Chris Hemsworth and 30 Day Fitness, these are all the apps, which are like bringing people together and getting them health conscious, and getting them to focus on themselves during this time. When we look at it from an index perspective, now when we say an index, it is all numbers that are more than 100 are, the higher they are from 100, it is indicating that they are more inclined towards that. We see that playing mobile games is significantly indexed towards all age groups, in particular the younger male and the younger female audience sets that we have identified. These are the four major groups of users that we have identified, which kind of correlate to most brands out there. And when we've asked them these questions, what are they doing nowadays? What is what impact has COVID had on the time that they're spending on different media? Mobile gaming has come across constantly as the activity that they are taking up the most. We can see that among the two major changes that have happened among the younger male and the younger female age groups, they are listening to a lot more streaming services. They are watching a lot more OTT services, and also spending time on social media and different apps. Parents, on the other hand, are more inclined towards a little bit of news content, but gaming is popular among them. And for working professionals as well, we can see that this is where things are moving in the same direction. Now, moving ahead, uh, stepping outdoors with games, this is a section that Tom will take you all through and deep dive into how gaming is impacting lives post this COVID era.
Okay, hi guys. One thing I forgot to flag at the beginning, because I'm a terrible moderator, is the fact that you can ask questions at any point using the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom link. So please feel free to ask questions as we're going along. We'll deal with those questions towards the end of the session. So stepping outdoors with gaming, and that's actually something that's really relevant and interesting from a societal level. We see gaming becoming the new social, and this is a meta trend where social, envisioned as static vertical feeds of content, is given way to social interaction in extended reality spaces. So a big trend that we see in gaming is people coming for the game and then staying for the party. So acts like Marshmello, holding concerts in Fortnite, lots of social interaction going on with gaming, within gaming, and gaming being an extended reality space where people hang out and truly interact socially, and that being a development from social as being thought of as static vertical feeds of content. So an interesting kind of meta development there. When we look at all markets across APAC, we see consumers spending more time on video streaming, mobile games, and downloading more apps, but also spending lots of time on social media, of course. We're all as socially connected during this time as we ever have been. Media consumption in Australia. So Australians are far more enthusiastic about their increases in video streaming or mobile gaming. Not quite sure why that is. If we had Lance on the call, who's our country manager in Australia, he might be able to help us out. So overall, 40% are playing more mobile games during the outbreak. And of course, 51% of mobile gamers are female. There's a common myth, I think, out there that maybe Gaming is a male-dominated area. Not at all. 51% of mobile gamers are female. So 40% more mobile games, 51% female. But moving into looking at age groups, all age groups across APAC have increased their time spent on mobile games significantly during the past few weeks. So looking at Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen X, we see an increase in mobile games. In fact, more of an increase in mobile game playing behavior from Gen Y and Gen X than Gen Z. I think that's maybe because Gen Z are naturally more engaged with mobile games anyway. Much more of an increase in video streaming from Gen Z and Gen Y. And then overall, when we look at the frequency of play, there's been a 55% increase in the number of consumers playing mobile games multiple times per day. So that's a huge, huge increase in multiple sessions per day from consumers. And there's a 12% increase in consumers who are playing on a daily basis. And of course, other categories are seeing a fall as consumers move from weekly or multiple times a week gaming behavior towards daily or multiple times per day gaming behavior. So a real increase in overall gaming behavior from consumers. We've also seen 67% of consumers have added new games on their smartphones since the beginning of March. So the majority, 2 in 3 of consumers have actually added a new game to occupy, perhaps to occupy the time. And, you know, many consumers are adding 4, 5, 6 or more new games. And then if we look at the, looking at these stats in terms of different audiences, so parents, young males, young females, and working professionals, we can see an increase in playing mobile games daily across all of those audiences of greater than 40%. 70% of these audiences have played a new game in the past few weeks, an especially high percentage of parents who've actually downloaded a new game, perhaps to take the stress off after a long day of homeschooling. And consumers, again, we can see at an audience level, are playing a large number of games. So 50, 60%, 60% of consumers are playing 3 games or more. 31% of females are playing 4 to 6 games. So consumers are playing multiple games together. And this gaming trend that we're seeing is something across the whole of APAC. So it's very obvious in the app stores that mobile gaming is seeing an increase in consumer usage. So gaming apps are the top of the app stores in every country across Asia Pacific other than China and New Zealand. So this trend that we're seeing of an increase in mobile gaming behavior is common across all of Asia Pacific. And gaming apps have the largest share of active users. So again, this isn't a massively new thing. We've, you know, historically there has always been a high volume of mobile gaming behavior from smartphone users, and mobile gaming is the most used app category from consumers across Asia Pacific. Diving into those app stores again for information, we can see that games make up a huge percentage of the top 50 apps in the app stores, and this has increased post the outbreak in each region. So we can see in Vietnam, 52% of the top 50 apps in the App Store, so that's 26 of the top 50 apps are mobile games. In Australia, 36% of the top 50 apps, that's 18 apps are mobile games. The numbers in red represent the increase in mobile games in the top 50 that we've seen. So always huge numbers of mobile games in those top 50 apps, consumers playing a lot of mobile games, but definite increase in every market since the since the COVID situation over the past few weeks. Just wanted to dive into a few different app categories here to give you some insight into the different categories where we've seen a specific increase. So arcade is one category where we've seen an increase in both downloads and total sessions from consumers. So these are the numbers in the bar chart in blue, the total downloads. The green line represents the total number of user sessions. And these are numbers over the past month, figures in millions. So you can see an increase in downloads and an increase in sessions of arcade games. Casual is another category where we've seen broadly an increase in downloads and an increase in sessions, not quite as clear as in arcade. Casual, of course, is one of the most popular and emerging app categories with consumers. Lots of hyper casual games out there. Consumers spend a lot of time playing. Education, we haven't seen a huge increase in numbers of downloads, but we have seen an increase in number of consumer sessions. So perhaps this is suggesting increased usage by consumers of educational apps that they already have within their smartphones. And trivia. So trivia games, fun trivia games, again, fairly flat in terms of downloads, but an increase in number of sessions. So definite increases in arcade, casual and hyper casual, educational games and trivia games across Asia Pacific. And simulation as well, we've seen an increase in downloads and total sessions. Just wanted to dive into some individual apps. And we're just kind of looking at some market level information here. So these are some specific apps, so you can get a sense as to what apps consumers are using. So Ludo King is a very popular game in India. As India goes into lockdown, we can see a huge spike in DAUs, so that's daily average users. So a big spike in India on Ludo King. Wormzone.io is a very popular game in Indonesia. In fact, it's a hugely popular game across a lot of markets in Asia Pacific. It's in the top 10 of the App Store in multiple markets. Again, we can see as COVID cases continue to rise in Indonesia, and as people start to socially distance, then we can see DAUs on Wormzone increase. In Australia, Words with Friends 2 is a very popular app. Again, we can see as we move into a period of increased social distancing and eventually lockdown, DAUs on Words with Friends 2 increase massively. And Brain Test in Japan, popular app in Japan. As COVID cases begin to rise and as consumers begin to socially distance, an increase in DAUs on Brain Test. So one thing I would say, I'm just about to hand over to Mitch, who's going to talk through some other impacts on the market that we've seen in terms of online shopping and other behavior. The stats that we've shown, there's lots more detail, lots more granularity around this. So feel free to reach out to us at any stage if any of these charts have interested you, and we can provide more data. Mitch.
Thanks, Tom. So just taking you all through the next section of content that we have for y'all. So yes, like we've seen, people are now staying indoors and gaming a lot more, and that leaves the doors open for deliveries because people still need their day-to-day supplies and they are not stepping out of their houses. So the trend that we've observed is that 49%, this is literally 1 in 2 people have purchased something online in the last 2 weeks. So this is pretty big, and this trend is only going to keep continuing, because if we look at the momentum and the trend pattern of things that have been happening, so like we've identified, 49% are looking to purchase groceries or household items online. and 24% will shift their purchases from offline to online. So this is a major trend that's happening. People are not wanting to step out of their house, either because of restrictions placed on them by the government, or because of the fear that they have themselves and the desire to keep social distance from others around. So yeah, while these trends are going up, we're noticing that people are shopping online a lot more and purchasing things that they would have normally purchased offline or from their mobile devices. And moving ahead, we've just dived into some of the uh, e-commerce apps that we see are popular in certain regions. And if we see the Rakuten app in Japan or Shopee in Singapore, they have been pretty much constant. But as the COVID cases have been on the rise and social distancing has been increasing, Australia, Woolworth in Australia and Lazada in Indonesia have seen a dramatic spike in the number of daily active users that these two specific apps have seen, where Woolworth has gone from 75,000 to 120,000 active users per day during the course of March itself. And the same goes for Lazada, which has gone from 77,000 to 101,000 active users per day on the app. And analyzing this by the different audience segments that we have picked up, we see that there are some definite and pretty obvious delayed purchases that people would make, which is, postponing things like travel or real estate or event tickets and concert tickets. But the things which are not being delayed, obviously being the essential items, but it is also interesting to see that young males are not even interested in delaying purchase of luxury items. So this is an interesting trend that has been observed, where the audience, while being under lockdown, is still being quite open and wanting to go about their lives as they normally would. When we look at the shift in expenditure, we see that a large chunk of users are not going to reduce their expenses as such for the year, and also plan to move their purchases from offline to online, like we have also identified. And moving ahead, when we just take a brief look at what is the concern level when it comes to the availability of essentials, we see that it is a younger female audience that is pretty much concerned about the availability of these essentials like antibacterial hand sanitizers, food and drink for the household, the essentials, and as well as things to entertain the house. The younger male, on the other hand, is more concerned with the food and drink for the household and things to keep themselves entertained with. So this is also, I think, pretty interesting for us to uh, go back out into the world knowing these things. And what is the user's objective, and what do they feel that brands need to be doing during this period? So while most people may think that no, we should not be advertising during this period, users on the other hand feel contrary. They feel that communication is even more important during this period as compared to usual. 80% of these consumers want brands to continue communicating during this crisis. And what do they want brands to continue communicating about? It is the information around health and safety, the efforts that are being taken, the assurance and compassion, as well as the latest promotions and discounts, and while keeping the right type of humor to lighten the mood and not having everything, like it's an end of the world kind of situation at all times. But keeping this in mind, there are a certain number of categories of products that and services that have a greater risk when being adjacent to COVID content. So food and beverage category faces the highest risk when it comes to users' perception that this kind of product should not be placed adjacent to any content related to COVID. And the same goes for travel, FMCG, real estate, as well as the oil and gas sector. So in general, consumers have voiced their opinion that they would not like to see this when it comes to COVID content. And this is why we've been advocating that mobile gaming is the ideal platform for brand suitability, because it is brand safe. There is no erroneous info spread by user generated content. There is a focused and captive audience that you have with immense dwell time as well. And the 4 pillars that brands need to follow for the right messaging during this period are to have empathy with the users and the situations that they're facing, to show acts of altruism, and to correlate with the audience as well, to engage with the users and not just have a one-way communication, as well as to have relevance in the messaging that they're putting out there and not just messages that may not be relevant to each user. And when we come to that, we've kept a couple of examples over here that we have proactively designed and shown how brands can communicate during this period as well. So there are a lot of myths that are going around and being spread around through different messaging platforms and social media as well, about what is and what isn't the right thing to do during this period of as a kind of concept that can be executed by brands during this period. Uh, Let me just try playing this for y'all. So it starts off with a simple Q&A question where users can identify that, is this the right option that I'm taking or is this not? And moving ahead, if we don't want to take the direct route, of talking about COVID and how this would impact users, there is also a more indirect route that can be taken, which is by sharing recipes of things that help boost your immune system. So in this manner, brands can place themselves in the right frame of mind for the users, while at the same time promoting themselves with the messaging that they want to communicate out there. Another more direct way of communicating is through the message of personal hygiene. So we have ads where we can actually show this and ask users to interact with it. And when the user actually goes to touch the ad, the phone vibrates and it gives the user the message that they need to be aware of the surfaces that they're touching and maintain that level of personal hygiene. Another type of ad that can be shown is when it comes to just wiping away your screen and essentially promoting your product in a manner that is relevant to the user. So for an ISP in this case, or a telco in this case, just showing that while you're at home, you don't need to worry about data limits or the kind of restrictions that you would have, and by giving them something as an incentive to better to win the consumer over to you. And how has this impacted mobile ads in general? So we've identified a couple of key categories, which is FMCG, entertainment, and beverage. And we've analyzed how these campaigns have performed pre and post COVID. So we have definitely observed a dramatic increase in the engagement rate of users for each of these categories as well. Where FMCG, the average engagement rate would have been around 1.3% pre-COVID. It's now around 4%. Similarly, for entertainment, with 1.6%, the engagement rate has moved up to 3%. And this is on an Aurora ad, which is an interactive video ad product of AdColony. And for the beverage category as well, it's moved up from a 1 to a 1.3% increase in engagement rate. And in general, we wanted to talk about the positive stuff happening out there as well. So how are brands making a difference? So NT News, which is a newspaper in Australia, has started to print out extra pages in their newspaper to help out during the toilet paper shortage. F1 teams, while the sporting seasons across the world are getting cancelled, it is the F1 teams that are now making respiratory devices for treating patients throughout the UK. Alcohol brands like Diageo are making hand sanitizers for our healthcare workers. Oyo, which is a chain of hotels, have offered to turn some of their hotels into quarantine centers. Woolworth is operating elderly only hours for their stores where only the elderly are allowed to come in, shop, and go back home. And obviously, we all know that the WHO has also partnered with multiple players in the gaming industry and has started the movement of Play Apart together. So just to take things ahead, Tom will be taking you on how do we deal with this situation.
Okay, guys, I'm bringing it home. So here we go, the final few slides. I just wanted to start with a few learnings from China. So China has, the situation started in China a lot earlier in mid-January, and reports from China are that life is returning to normal. So cities coming out of quarantine, commerce, business starting to get going again. So there are a few interesting learnings from China around what was impacted and what wasn't impacted. So first of all, clear impact on a limited set of categories. So dining, entertainment, travel, all impacted quite seriously. I don't think that's a surprise to anybody on this call. But I think more interestingly, many verticals saw increased purchases. So we can see that even during this situation, there were opportunities for brands to capitalize. So epidemic prevention as a category saw a huge increase in purchases, which is rather obvious. Drug purchase also up, but food, beverage, household cleaning, online entertainment, nutritional supplements, life insurance, medical insurance, and the personal care category also saw major increases in purchases. So some verticals down as a result of COVID, but definite opportunities in other sectors, an increase in spend from brands, and an increase in purchasing from consumers. So interesting learnings from China. I just wanted to finish by talking about what brands should do overall to address these fluid times and shifts in consumer behavior. So I think to summarize, there are 3 key points that brands should probably take away from the study. So the first one is that consumers want brands to stay in touch. They're interested to hear what you have to say, how you are evolving your products and services over this time. They're interested to hear from you, and they don't want brands to stop communicating. I think the second part of it is it's important that brands move with consumers. So we are seeing consumers spending huge amounts of additional time across streaming media and mobile gaming. So, you need to shift your plan, shift your marketing activity to meet consumers where they are spending time. And I think the third big part of it, and Mitch kind of covered a few ideas in the creative section at the end, is around focusing on engagement. So consumers have more time than ever to spend with your brand right now. So if you do something interesting, they can and they will spend time with you. Make the most of that opportunity with interactive video, with playables and other deep engaging formats and marketing activities. Now is not the time for static creative. You are missing a big opportunity. It's important that brands educate, empathize, and engage with consumers, and brands may find that they can help consumers and societies get through this together. As I said, if you want more local reports, insights, any further data, please either visit the AdColony site or talk to your AdColony representative. We can provide different cuts of this data. So we've got a ton of questions that came through on our Q&A. Where did the data come from? The consumer data is from a study of 1,200 consumers across Asia Pacific that AdColony undertook over the past 3 weeks. The App Store data is via the AdColony platform and associated tools that we use to understand our traffic and understand how apps are performing within the App Store. So that's broadly where the insights come from. I think that answers a lot of the questions. There was another question around whether app stores included Huawei App Gallery. The answer there is that no, they don't. 1,200 respondents for the whole of APAC. Yes, we will send out a copy of this webinar afterwards, and that contains all of the information about total number of respondents, different cuts by market, different numbers by market. One question, Mitch, can you help? There's a question here helping clarify on luxury items within the purchase delay slides. So I think there's a slide looking at luxury items. For example, is automotive considered luxury?
Yeah, so no, automotive does not come under luxury. Luxury items purely include like jewelry and stuff which is expensive, other than automotive, which is classified completely separately.
Okay, right. Mitch, another question here. I mean, this is a more specific question around mobile games. Do you know which games have the highest increments? Would you be able to share a list? So I think there are the categories that we saw the highest increment, but it would be great to just hear any more detail around that.
Yeah, so there are a couple of apps which are, very strong performing in particular regions. Like Ludo King was actually down in India for a couple of days because the traffic coming to the app was so high that people could not log into the app. So they've upgraded their servers now and are now able to take on a lot more users. But similar to Ludo King, there are a number of apps in other regions as well, like Worm Zone that we had identified in Indonesia and across Southeast Asia as well, which is very popular. And these, are showing the same kind of trend that as popularity increases and as time within this COVID lockdown period progresses, the number of users are increasing more and more.
Okay, great. Any insight data around what brands are planning to do with their digital spend budgets in the near future?
While we have seen a definite slowdown, all signs comparing to what we are seeing right now in the market, as well as compared to previous times where there have been recessions, it has identified very clearly that when times are tough, I mean, it's always good to identify where advertise when times are good, but when times are tough, that's when you must advertise. So this is a learning that we've seen from other recessional periods, as well as right now, this can be applied, that it is the brands that do advertise during this period that would actually come out on top.
Yeah, I think I'd just add to that just looking at that China data, we saw a 5% reduction in ad spend in China over Q1. And reports are that ad spend is back to standard levels in Q2. Because, while some brands and categories are impacted, other brands and categories have opportunities. In fact, I think early reports are that there is likely to be a consumer boom, consumer retail boom in China over the next couple of months. So we're not seeing a huge impact on budgets or on spend. I think there's a natural kind of natural softness in the market, but nothing huge. One additional thing on that is we are talking about, digital media here. There are some channels in advertising and media that are more impacted. So out of home will see a big decline in spend as people are not spending time outside their houses. Whereas digital, clearly there are more consumer eyeballs. And actually there's another interesting question that's come in around, which leads on from that, around CPMs across the region. So DAUs have gone up, but what's happened to CPMs? And I think, I will jump on that one straight away. I think we've seen fairly stable CPMs across our platforms. And I think other major platforms like Facebook and Google are also reporting fairly stable CPMs, maybe a small decrease. I think one of the interesting aspects of mobile app advertising and certainly mobile gaming advertising platforms like ours are that at this time, with the huge increase in consumers spending time on mobile games, downloading more mobile games, gaming advertisers and big gaming businesses like EA, are coming into the market quite heavily, spending a lot of money on promoting games and trying to pick up users. So yeah, I mean, certainly in terms of our platform, fairly level CPMs, but I think the market is fairly stable. Okay, we've got a question here. This is a good one for you, Mitch. Is AdColony only available for gaming apps, or are you able to cater to other apps too, like Todoist, planner apps, fitness apps?
So while we are a predominantly gaming centered platform, it is because of where the users are. We do have a few partnerships with other apps as well, but yes, our platform is entirely focused around the gaming ecosystem, because that's where bulk and the majority of the users are. And like we've seen through the course of this entire presentation, it's where they're spending their time as well.
Yeah. So absolutely. So all apps are available on the AdColony platform. As Mitch said, the reality is that consumers now especially, but always, spend most of their time in apps, in gaming apps. So that's where the biggest opportunity is. But of course, tons of opportunity as well across planner apps, fitness apps, to-do apps, productivity apps, lots of different things. And those are all available on the AdColony platform. Right, Mitch, we see that there is a greater risk for COVID content in F&B, but food delivery is increasing. So the opportunity to communicate with consumers increases, or is there is there some risk there?
So it is definitely, we do need to increase the communication with the consumer. It's just that we need to be a bit careful over here about where our content is being placed. So it's not to say that there is a greater risk for F&B, means F&B should not advertise. It's just that the F&B category needs to be more careful around where it is advertising, because that's what consumers are more sensitive towards. But yes, when we look at gaming as a platform, we don't have that kind of risk, because that's not the kind of content that you're being associated with.
Okay, I think that's it. I think the questions have, I think we've dealt with most of the questions. So thank you very much, guys.